doggy stuff. And I thought, oh, my dogs need a couple collars. So I pull in there, and lo and behold, it's not a place, not a garage sale. It's a place where homeless people can bring their dogs and get free beds and collars and leashes and vet services. And I striked up a conversation and found out this was what they did. And I said, here's my card, call somebody in the Rotary and see about coming and speaking. So that's now 6 months later, she made connections. So Gillian Squirrel is a founder of Square Cube LLC, a social impact consulting and coaching company working with businesses, nonprofits, and individuals to maximize the positive social impacts that they can make. She's relatively new to Sonoma County, having come from the UK with a background as both an academic working on public engagement and evaluation of social interventions and as a direct service provider of services for people living homeless. And we're a club that really helps the homeless. I'm going to let her talk a little bit more because I know she has a good presentation. So please give the Sebastopol Sunrise Rotary. Oh, we have a song too. Yes. Let's do that. We're going to sing to you. Okay.
How's it go?
There's a Joe. Welcome to Gillian. Here's your song.
How you do, honored speaker? How you do? Is there anything that we can do for you? Thanks for coming here today. We're with you all the way. How do you do, honored speaker? How do you do?
Now we know the tune, Joe.
We're all right, Joe. We can change those.
Okay, well,
You have to hold the microphone close.
so, well, I've not had a welcome like that before, so thank you for that. And I also understand now, at least I think I'm understanding the tradition, that if you speak you get fined, so I'm really worrying about what my bill is going to be at the end of this.
Marty will pay, don't worry.
I'll take care of it.
So, what I want to do is to talk about compassion and about building compassionate communities. It's, okay, now I've got several things to manage here, including the projector. So I find compassion a really interesting concept, and a difficult concept. So what does it mean? Is it a sort of soft, pink, fluffy, gooey word, or what's actually behind it? I find it particularly problematic because across our trailer, which you eventually saw, we have emblazoned across the side in big orange letters, compassion for both ends of the leash. And I did a paper in Oxford last year, and I went back to what on earth does that phrase mean. It seemed incredibly clever at the time, and I was thinking about sort of fundraising, but also about an organising principle for homeless with pets. But I keep revisiting this notion of compassion. So I'm wearing two hats. I want to talk to you about my bigger project, which is about building compassionate communities, which is part of what Square Cube stands for. And that was introduced a little. And I also want to talk with you about founding Homeless with Pets and that particular project. So is that visible at the back?
Yeah.
I don't have much text, and I do have a number of photos, and I'll just sort of weave comments around both the PowerPoint slides and the photos. So, compassion, I find it as a strange and an interesting concept. So, what actually is it? It has to be something more than sympathy. And that takes us to empathy. It's something about really caring about another's well-being and another's happiness for their own sake, which sort of starts to take it to an interesting place, because you don't actually have to like the person that you're going to help. You simply need to be holding somebody else's best interests at heart. There's something about compassion, I think, that is working with somebody on a platform of equality. So instead of putting oneself in I'm doing a service for somebody, putting yourself potentially in a better land box, it's very much about being in an equal relationship with somebody. It's very much about the relational. It's very much about not fixing somebody, but spending time with somebody, about listening and about trying to walk in their shoes for a while and to understand what it means to be that person and what their solutions would be and their ideas for their problems. At least that's what I think. And I think there's something that's incredibly powerful and incredibly important, and that's about being extremely present and actually showing up. Not showing up simply to do a service for somebody or to fix them or to try to sort out a problem, but just staying in that time. So you already know I'm going to talk about homelessness. It's my particular big thing. I find it morally outrageous that people do not have a roof over their heads, do not have a place that they can be organised, that they can feel safe, that they can work out from. Being homeless takes an awful lot of time. Pretty much it's an all-day job, working out where to be. If you're in a vehicle, you need to keep moving so you don't get citations. You have to work out complicated things like bathrooms, showers, feeding, things that all of us take for granted and, at least in the morning, probably have down to a sort of really efficient pattern. So one of the very powerful things, I think, is about actually showing up, spending time, and really trying to understand and ask questions about, what is it like to be? What would be some of the ways to sort the situation out? What would you actually like? And I think one of the very powerful services that Homeless with Pets provides is to be with people in being homeless. So we do evening food runs and go out to parking lots where people sleep and just hang out there for a couple of hours and spend time just chatting and talking. So one of the parking lots where I had spent an awful lot of evenings is in fact now closed as a safe parking site in Santa Rosa. But I'd turn up and people would just know I'd arrive with food, they'd start getting out of their cars, whether they had animals or not, it didn't matter, and would come and just talk, and then we would start having conversations. So there's something about presence, something about showing up. And I said I find this word, sorry about the microphone, I said I find this word compassion a complicated one. And one of the phrases I really like is the notion of cultivated compassion or entangled empathy. And there's something about doing a dance between how did this situation come about and what is it, what's the bigger picture issue, what is it that we maybe need to think about and do differently, and coming back to the situation that somebody, some animal, the environment might be in, to think about what should we do about this particular situation now. And another big thing for me about compassion is taking compassionate action, and I'm going to talk about a bit about Homeless with Pets, which is my bit of compassionate action. But Karen Emmerman has a really nice phrase, which is about creating moral reminders. So we do something compassionate, we show some empathy, we do something, we are with somebody and sorting out a particular situation with them, finding out what they want. We do something and it's a partial solution. It doesn't solve the whole problem, but there's something that needs to be done. And in doing that, we create a moral reminder that we need to come back to think about what's the bigger picture, where do we need to take action, how do we need to think about this thing. So for me, I like that notion of moral reminders, that we have to come back always to the bigger picture and the context. So, why is compassion important to communities? So, compassion very much builds resilience into communities. It makes them more able to negotiate big problems, a man-made disaster, an economic disaster, some type of natural disaster. It's a place where people feel comfortable and can play roles, can take responsibility, can sing and enjoy themselves. But it's a community that's important, and of course this is a community. Communities community is important, and it's the flip side of all of those dis words. So disrespect, disempowering, disregarding, distrusting, disliking. So as soon as people and communities go to a place of using those dis words, they can go to an even more extreme place, which is about, to borrow a sociological term, otherising people or otherising situations. So holding them at a distance and really going in a box that you are better than whatever it is. Which is not a good place to go to, because then there's abuse, there's neglect, there's also violence and way worse situations. So it's always really important not to go to that place of otherising, not to go to that place of distancing, but to spending time with, and you don't have to like the person, but it's a good idea to find out why the situation has come about. And compassion generates its own sort of virtuous cycle. So the more we are curious, and that was the thing I thought was very cool. You wanted to come to get harnesses, but then you stopped because you realised we weren't going to sell you harnesses. And I do remember you trying to press money on us, and we just said no. But you came out of curiosity. You wanted to know what this weird novel thing was that was going on, and so you came to find out. And now it's led to this, and you get a huge fine at the end of this talk. But there's something about being curious about things, and curiosity to me is part of being compassionate. And there's also, in practicing compassion, becoming self-compassionate. So not beating oneself up for something, not being so self-critical, helps you to not be critical of others and other situations. The more compassionate we are, we get into a virtuous cycle, we become less stressed, we become more trusting, creative and inventive. Interestingly, I've just moved our offices to Sebastopol, and I spent time looking for places where we might like to be, and I kept coming back to Sebastopol. And there's something about Sebastopol, there's something about its vibe, something about how it is, that it just feels like a good place to be, where it has got resonance with our particular values and is likely to let us be sort of creative in the work we do. And I was talking about compassionate communities with a friend, and she was giving me a story of when she used to live in New Mexico. And instead of going to the local town, which was on her doorstep to buy provisions, she would drive 45 miles to go to Durango, because she just wanted to be in Durango because of the energy of that particular place, and she felt it was a good place to be, a good place to feel creative, to feel accepted. It was interesting, she became curious, whereas in the local town she sort of shut down. And I thought that was an interesting story. And there is, and I have now forgotten the place, and I do apologise, but I can get it for you. But there's a mayor in Ohio who's taken this notion of compassion and applied it to local city governance, and I can give you a reference for that if you want, but it's a very cool idea. He wants to take a model of compassion and apply it to his local governing. And compassion, of course, means better business. So just like my friend who would go to Durango to shop, be there, spend time, felt relaxed, would buy more stuff, would be more curious about what was in stores. I'm wondering if that also works with Sebastopol. So very much businesses need to think about factoring in compassion and thinking about how they engage with their communities. Not least of all because millennials are about to make up 50% of the workforce, and as we know, millennials think about their job in terms of their personal brand, and they want to be in jobs where there's a possibility of making positive social impact. They want to be able to contribute to a business's notions of corporate social responsibility, of its social impact, of its community engagement. And as leaders, and I noticed that was the title that you gave me, if you're a leader, a self-leader, because we all have to lead ourselves, or if you're leading a business or a company, the more you can go to different places of leadership, so not always leading from the front, the more likely you are to avoid the negative sides of leading from the front, so burnout and things. So there are lots of very good reasons why businesses need to think about factoring in compassion. People are becoming much more canny, much more savvy as purchasers of services and purchasers of goods. And I was reading some stuff from the Code Communication Company yesterday, and Americans are making very clear statements with their purchasing power about either supporting or not supporting businesses that align with their values or don't align with their values, and for businesses that don't stand up. Phenomenal figures like 77% would not buy from a business that did not align with their values. Amongst the millennials, even higher. So just quickly, the compassionate leader. So different places to lead from. And I'm going to just go to that square down the bottom, which is the field. So leading from the field is a place of being curious, about noticing things, about just being open to what's going on. And I just want to read you this one. So, a compassionate community is an uncomfortable community, uncomfortable when anyone is homeless or hungry, uncomfortable that every child is not loved and given rich opportunities to grow and to thrive, uncomfortable when, as a community, we do not treat neighbours as we wish to be treated. And that's Karen Armstrong became the founder of the Compassionate Communities campaign and developed the Compassion Charter. And I think that's an interesting notion that in compassion we can also experience discomfort. So for me, as I said, I find homelessness morally outrageous for a whole host of reasons that people are living in these ways. Sleeping in the back of their trucks, picking food out of bins, trying to catch up on sleep that was fractured during the night because it wasn't safe to sleep, and trying to sleep during the day. And homelessness is much more than shelterlessness. It's a peculiar way to try to exist because you're living every aspect of your life in public. And doing it in public means that you are attracting judgment. It's traumatic and risky to personal well-being, to identity, to sense of agency. There are multiple ways of doing homelessness, and it isn't a homogeneous group. So the most recent point in time counts always suggest that homelessness is going down in the county. This is one of the counties that's always in the top 10 tables for homelessness. This is the parking lot outside the fairgrounds, and I now understand that should I be on the run from the city police, if I go and hang in that parking lot, it's very good because the sheriff has to come and find me because the city police can't enter that parking lot. So I'm bearing that in mind in case I need that information, because of course the sheriffs will be whizzing by on the top of the flyover and they won't know I'm underneath. So that's always a place where we find people and distribute food. There's an irony for me in this particular picture. There's the Mr. Coffee box. I took that one morning when we were giving out some donated food from Panera and Starbucks who donated us some hot water for making drinks. And this woman was waking up and she had her Mr. Coffee box, but no Mr. Coffee machine or access to electricity. And of course, homelessness is dangerous. It's cheap to go and buy a bottle of hand sanitizer from the Dollar Tree and then try to ignite it, because it's going to give you a cheap heat source. Not so good when, of course, it leads to the burning down of your home. And this is a photo of Garnick, who's one of our peer interns who works with us on a number of our projects. So, compassion in action, because I said you have to take some action in compassion. What happened with Homeless with Pets? Well, leading from the field, there was a recognition that there's a problem. So, there are an awful lot of people who are homeless with animals. People with animals can't easily enter a shelter situation, although I have been working with Catholic Charities and Sam Jones to increase the number of people living homeless because of the Homeless Hill clean-up. I think that there are 24% of people living homeless who have an animal companion. It's a figure from the National Homeless Coalition from 2009, but experientially, over the past 3 years, visiting various places, that would seem not an unreasonable figure to me. So supposedly, the point in time count of January this year, we have 2,835 people who are not sheltered or living in secure accommodation. So that 24% would mean we've got about 709 people who are homeless because they have an animal. Most people will not give up their animal to go into shelter if they could, and once homeless, it's much harder to get accommodation with an animal. But of course, the animal provides a whole load of physiological and psychological comfort. The animal is a significant other. The animal is, as one person said, it's like my family member. I wouldn't dump my grandma, would I? And as Kerry said, Sennen, that's her dog, her old German Shepherd, is the only person who will go through living homeless with me and who understands, the only person who will share this. So listening was one of the things I said about compassion. So I spent a lot of time from 2014 onwards. What is it that people living homeless with an animal companion would need, would like, what would help their situation? Food, obviously, harnesses that you tried to buy and got turned down, obviously, and leashes, and veterinary care. So you might have seen our Black Homes with Pets trailer with I don't have a photo of the logo, but we have a big white dog on the side of our trailer and compassion for both ends of the leash, as I said, on the side. So we go to various parts of the county and run free vaccine and wellness clinics for people with their animals. And this is Janine and Hope. If a bond is strong, if it's good for both animal and person, then we certainly wouldn't think about interrupting that bond. Sometimes it can be detrimental if you are refusing to leave your car to go to hospital because you don't know what's going to happen to Fluffy. That's not such a good bond. There have been very, very few instances, like I can count on the fingers of my hands, which we would call either abusive or neglectful, and usually it's because of extreme mental health issues, or somebody thinks they can make that mythical $500 breeding a dog and selling it outside Walmart. So most people, if an animal's not totally well taken care of, it's because people don't have the wherewithal or simply don't know how. So one of the things that we spend time doing is talking about how to care for an animal and offering information about humane education. So, Homeless with Pets, what does it do? Well, you can see Chopper wearing the hat. Chopper's sitting in the bathtub, and we have some free, every quarter we have a grooming event, and groomers will bring their mobile trailers, and we just have a big dog wash day and a big cat wash day. That's Captain the Cat, and you can see him with his owner and the nose of the dog outside our trailer. Inside the trailer with one of our volunteer vets and vet techs, and Berkeley. I just think he's one of the greatest and most photogenic dogs. We started to run something that we call Breakfast with Pets. So on grooming days, on Christmas days, on Halloween, on just days that sort of we wanted to make special, we would run a food event and just have people with their animals come. They could socialise with each other. And just have some food and some drinks. And this grew out of my insistence that we create an open-air living room for every clinic, so people can simply socialise, be with each other, and not wear that pathologised label of being homeless. So they can just talk pets and waiting for the vet and just be somewhere safe and socialise. We now do have a food project, Food in a Flash, and we will be running the county's winter warmth programme as of this fall. So tents, suntan cream for the summer, wet weather gear, tarps, bungees, canopies, anything that is useful for people surviving outdoors we'll be passing on. This is Bashful, she's 27. She's been with her person for 27 years. They live in a car with a couple of pit bulls and the woman's son. It worries me because I can't find an avian vet who will volunteer time. You know, what will happen if something happens to Bashful? That is an incredibly important relationship to both of them. and then images that perhaps a little bit more typical. So, any thoughts, any questions, any observations?
There we go.
Is there any time that you think maybe a person shouldn't have an animal and that you try to place that
Yes.
animal someplace else?
So, as I said, there are a couple of instances. So if somebody is struggling so badly with their own health that they're not being hospitalised or not taking treatment, then there's a conversation to be had about, can we temporarily foster Fluffy for you? There are a number of instances at end of life where somebody will be struggling with the end of their life and so anxious about what's going to happen to their animal, they won't put them in a place, themselves in a place of being comfortable. So we intervene then. Actual incidents of cruelty, very, very few, but yes, certainly we work with animal control, but of course it's difficult. If somebody knows that that animal control might be after them, they move around. But the number of instances are negligible, and neglect is often just because simply somebody didn't understand how to or didn't have a resource.
Thank you.
Somewhere around 2003, I found myself at the Petaluma shelter looking to adopt a cat. There was one cat I kept coming back to. When I learned his history, he wasn't a potentially good pet to be adopted. The reason he was there is that his owner, at the age of 87, had become homeless and didn't want that life for her cat. The cat was somewhere between 9 and 10 years old and in bad health with a mangled ear. The end of the story, which I'll skip to, is that Rocky is now 23 years old. He lives in his warm little bed and on my lap. He's a wonderful cat. What you're doing is amazing. Thank you.
And I was with a name Lucky.
What are potential solutions for, because there's different types of homelessness? Would a city of tiny houses provide something with their pets? Stable, how will they stay for long term, 6 months?
So there are multiple tiny house and hut projects that are around, and yes, the problem is always trying to get land. And it's something I think about a lot. I'd very much like to create a community and live in that community, and create a secure base for people and be there it would need policing for it to be an effective sort of community. But yes, if you had some land, some tiny houses, people would have a base, they could certainly have their animals, and if you're going to have an interspecies project, which is what it would be, it would need some sort of management and guidelines. We have in the county and the city passed ordinances to allow people to roll land into accommodating people in more imaginative sorts of ways, but that's a good idea.
I'm out of time for questions, but I'd like to thank you for... And before you go, we have one last task. We have it.
Just
We have a raffle.
at risk of being fined, if you want to card out homes with pets for one of my cards, please take that.
Cards been called. This is like the third time in a row the raffle was done.
No, we had it just fine last week, thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
The week before, though.
Good stuff. What you do?
Diane was going to win anyway, so.
Come on, good stuff.
Oh, I had the winner too. What's my number?
Oh, that was here. It was like, would you come back up and draw our raffle ticket?
That's a big
Brandt's
Jeez. Smart aleck.
424.
Okay. Who got it? And then,
I'm doing this just to cover over the fact there's only one ticket in the basket.
and the winning number is 8404.
Ho, ho, ho,
Go again, he's not here.
All right.
Bring home the bacon, Biggs.
Come on. On a card trip, boy.
Yeah,
You got a trip to take, you need cash.
ready. Ooh, so close, so close.
What's the door prize?
Where is the door?
What's the door prize? Have a glass of water.
They have a bell. We'll take a bell.
Really?
Dave isn't here for the joke
Need to
today,
be a poor
but I have a
club.
joke. My doctor told me to avoid any unnecessary stress, so I didn't open his bill. Joe.
Go!
Oh,
Our normal sack lunch crew is not here today. I could use a little help afterwards.
okay.
Where's that door prize?
I gave it out last week.
I didn't come last week.
It's not my fault.
Hey!
I'll bring you a door prize, Joe.
You guys don't forget the postcards.
And put it in your cars and your trucks. Put it in there.
Happy trails to